What are we going to do? I know, let's build a telescope. Alright, let's cover some astronomy and telescope basics. So we have our Earth over here, or maybe for all you flat earthers out there, we can make it flat. We have the man in the moon. We have stars. We have planets, some with moons around them, others with rings. We have galaxies. And we have nebula. So these are some of the objects we want to observe in the night sky. And one of the ways we can observe them is simply just go out there and observe the night sky with your naked eye. There's plenty to see. The moon in all its magnificence. We have a full moon tonight. You can make out planets. You can make out constellations. And in some cases, some other objects. For example, was it 2 or 3 months ago, we had the comet C-2023 that was visible in the evening sky. That was quite something to see. However, we want to get in a little bit closer to some of these objects. We can use binoculars. Binoculars are very useful for astronomy, surprisingly. If you have a set of binoculars lying around in the house, just take them out in the night sky and just look around, and there's so much you can see with them. Or we can use a telescope. However, there is a misconception about what a telescope does. Many people think that a telescope is to point it at something in the night sky and super magnify that thing so that we can see it. That is not what a telescope's main purpose is. The thing is, some of the objects in the night sky, for example, Andromeda, are huge. Andromeda is about 8 times the size of the moon. The reason we don't see it is because it's very dim. It's like a ghost in the night sky. So what a telescope does is it gathers all this dim light and it concentrates it into a form that our eyes can see. So we have our telescope over here. It gathers all this light from the dim object and it concentrates it to the eyepiece, and we're able to see it. Now, there are 2 main forms of telescopes. We have refractors. In this case, it uses lenses to concentrate the light. And we have reflectors. And reflectors have, for example, a curved mirror. And the light from the object hits the mirror. And in the case of a Newtonian, for example, the mirror being curved concentrates the light towards a point, but it hits a mirror, a secondary mirror that is curved at 45 degrees and bounces the light over to a point. We have an eyepiece and the light hits our eye. So that way we're able to observe light reflected off an object, off a mirror, and to our eye. So these ones are what are known as reflectors. And this case in particular is what we call a Newtonian telescope, and that's the one Sir Isaac Newton used and made famous. So this is what we're going to build. This is an eyepiece. So we need our cell. We need a holder for the secondary mirror over here. They normally call it a spider, so it's going to be something like 4 rods that stick inside here. Then they have the holder for the secondary mirror, and that's your tube. You'd need a focuser, so that's what you'd use to focus onto the image, and you'd have your viewer over here which you attach to the focuser. When I came across this set of components, and it seemed as if they came off an old telescope. So let's see what's in here. I do not know what these things are. Ah, that's a cover. That's a cover over there. And when we take off this cover, that is our primary mirror. So this is our primary mirror down here. And you can see it's supported in this structure over here, which is our cell. And you can see the cell has these knobs which you adjust in order to turn the orientation of the mirror. Okay, so what else do we have? We have our secondary cell, and this secondary cell is where the secondary mirror is housed. So just need to find a way to open this. Okay. How many fingers am I going to lose in this process? Okay. So this too comes with a cover. That's nice. So we have our secondary mirror in here. You can see the screws over here that are meant to hold the secondary mirror, and one of them is bent. That's not ideal, but we're going to work with that. So it seems as if there was a mishap of some sort. So possibly what happened is this person owned a telescope and they dropped it, it got smashed, and they just took it apart and they're selling the parts separately and hoping to make some money off it. Is that a mark on the mirror? You know, if you go to any of the experienced astronomers, they'll tell you it's better off to start with a pair of binoculars rather than to buy a telescope off a science project store that sells for something like 30 bucks or 40 or 50 bucks. Those are no good, and in fact they might ruin your first experiences of astronomy. Well, you should start with simply viewing the night sky with your own eyes without using any assistance, learning about the skies. And after that, you've got a pair of binoculars that you use for, you know, watching sports or any other thing. You can use those to observe the night sky. And then once you get better, you can start investing in a decent telescope like this. Alright, so our mirror will be at the bottom, and we'll have a tube that will run to this secondary mirror. And there's meant to be a third component, which is in here. This is the focuser. I have no idea what quality it is. So in the pictures I thought it would be plastic, but it's actually metal. The mount is plastic, but the focuser itself is metal. And this is a 2-inch focuser. So this eyepiece over here is a 1.25-inch eyepiece. So obviously that's not going to work. So what we're going to use is an adapter. So the next thing is to put all this stuff together into something that works. These cells are 7.5 inches in diameter, and the tubes that are used for construction are 8. That's what they're labeled as, 8-inch form tubes. So I went to check them out and found out they're actually not quite 8 inches. These are 7.5 inches. And if I could find a tape measure, I'll prove it to you. So that actually measures about 7 5/8. So we might be able to get away with using one of these tubes. The tube is just slightly too wide, literally like a millimeter too wide. Someplace. So I'm just literally just going to go over the edge and chamfer the edge. Try them out. No, this is not going to work. Still too big. This is going to be a wrestling match, and I think the tube is going to win. So I think an option will be to just slice a gap between the tubes on either side, and hopefully that'll be enough to, allow it to squish in slightly and fit our mirror cell into there. So let me give it a shot. And of course I've put dust on my mirror, so this is not what you want to do. I'm not going to blow that off because we don't want, you know, contaminants from your breath getting onto the mirror. However, this mirror needs to be cleaned anyway, so as long as it doesn't stay there too long. So hopefully that little adjustment's going to give us a leeway we need to get this. Okay, I'm going to have to take this off camera because it's not going to look pretty. Okay, the bad news is it's still not fitting. The good news is I think this idea is in the right direction and I'm getting way more flexibility than I thought I would. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to widen these gaps a little bit. Let's revisit the other one. Oh, we got enough of a gap there. Alright. Is that going to be enough to get our cell in? And success! That was a surprise. I wasn't expecting it to work. And since the gap doesn't go way down, this is going to be structurally very sound. So all I'm going to need to do is just make sure that the tube is sitting on the edge of the cell. You will see that there is an inner edge for these cells. So by ensuring that the edge sits on all, flush all the way around, we'll know that this cell is properly aligned with the tube. So we got a decent gap this time. Plenty of sawdust. Is our secondary mirror going to fit in? This one fits in like a dream. So all we need to do, find the inner edge. So we're looking at that is about an inch. It's about an inch down from the inner edge to the bottom of the cell. So to the middle of this mirror is going to be about 2.5 inches. So we want 3.5 inches down. That's where we're going to make our hole. Okay, the next thing we need to do is find the focal length of our primary mirror. So I'm just going to take the cell. I'm going to put it somewhere here. Might be a good start. Good distance. Got a box over here. So I'm going to take this, place it at this end. We need a light, and this one I picked a decorative light with a filament in it, visible filament, and that's going to be for a particular reason. Let's take this here. So we want it in the same plane as the box, and what we're going to do is we're going to shine the mirror. We're going to twist the mirror until we can see the reflection of the bulb on the box itself. So that's it there. The next step is going to be to move this mirror back and forth until the image on the box is sharp and in focus. So let's see what happens. This is my first time doing this, so I have no idea what's going to happen. Moving it back. It's way back into time. So you can see the filaments in the bulb itself. If I move the mirror forward, we lose focus. If I move the mirror too far back, lose focus. I bring it forward just a little bit. Okay, I think we have it in as good focus as we're going to get it. So we're going to take our masking tape and mark exactly where this box is. We're going to measure the distance from the focal plane, which is where the white box is. It's kind of got there. And we can see that it's about 101 inches. So this is meant to be twice the focal length of the mirror, so we're looking at around 50.5 inches. Alright, this is our secondary mirror cell, so we're going to draw it over here. That's the bottom. And our mirror is over here. So what I did is I measured from the bottom up to here, which was 116 millimeters, and from the bottom to the bottom edge of the mirror, which is 80. So the difference between the two, which is the center point, is 98 millimeters. And there's the inner edge of the cell, where the cardboard is going to meet the cell. This was 11 millimeters. So we just subtracted that from 98 and we got 87. So the distance from the tube, where the tube is going to rest on the inner cell, up to the central point, that is going to be 87 millimeters. As luck will have it, the container that the eyepiece came in is roughly around the size that we want to make our cutout. Just going to position it against the marks that we made and just draw. Well, the simplest way is just to get a box knife. Let's get our focuser positioned, get it into place. Check on the inside to make sure it's got enough clearance to move. I think it does. Let me test the movement. Oh, we got some interference over there. It is a very tight fit. Yeah, okay. That's going to do it. Alright, all we have to do now is plug in our primary mirror. So it's going to plug in the eyepiece. And there, I think our preliminary telescope is complete. So that's the top, that's the bottom. Just that things are not screwed in place, so we're going to need to take care of that. Make sure that the cellar's frame is resting against the tube. There, we got a functioning telescope. So what we're going to do is we're going to test it out, see if the focal distances are any good, and if not, we're going to start hacking away at the tube itself. So let me go outside and play with my new toy. See you in a bit. So this is where we are with the building of the telescope. I just plugged in the cells to the full length tube. The tube is 48 inches. And earlier during the day I took it out and it seemed as if it would be okay after all. You know, it seemed as if it didn't need to be trimmed down. You know, if you look back at our calculations, the calculation was that we needed to remove 2¼ inches off the tube. And it seemed as if I might have got something wrong with that. it seemed to be able to focus on objects around 30 feet away, so that seemed okay for me. And now it's nighttime. I took it, tried to look at some stars, and everything looked blurry. And it turns out that we may need to cut off that 2¼ inches after all. So what we're going to do now is going to remove the rear cell, and then we're going to trim around 2 inches off that back and see whether that works. Let's get you guys better situated. So I'm going to mark 2¼ . We want this to draw a line down here, and we want the screw to ride on the top. Okay. This is hacksaw. I should probably do this outside, but let me just go for it. Alright. I think we're all good, so we're just going to clean up over here. Mark everything, and then all the marks disappear. Alright, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to put everything back in. Oh, it fits in so well. So what I have here are 2 pieces of poplar board, and this paint grade, I think it's pine or something like that. And I know that this stuff, it's built out of blocks that are glued together. In fact, when I was looking through the stock in the warehouse, in the shop, some of them were actually splitting apart, so it's not the strongest material. What I'm going to use it for is just to create a temporary base and see how that works, at least just to get the telescope in use, and then maybe we'll build a stronger one in the future. I must admit that a router brings work up to next level. Just look at these pieces. Beautiful chamfered edges. Well, for some reason, getting your hands on a mask these days is not that much of a problem. So as you can see, the telescope's coming out pretty well. For the next attempt at this build, I'll do this slightly differently. So the thing we have to do now is we have to take care of sealing the edges of the tube. The problem is this is pretty much just cardboard tube, and we have to seal and harden the surface, otherwise moisture will get in here and start ripping apart the tube. So the way we're going to do that, take a bowl, take wood glue, give that a good shaking. Add a sprinkle of water. Take a brush and, well, don't splash it. So I'm just going to dip the tube in the glue, wet that edge, and paint it. So this is where we are with the telescope. It's time to get it ready for use. I've painted the inside with flat black, some spray paint. It's winter right now. I tried to spray this in the cold and it just froze the nozzle up, so I couldn't quite get the coverage I wanted to. So it's time to dress it up. I have a can of house paint. Not the perfect thing to use for this kind of work, but you know, this is satin, so it's actually water resistant to some extent. There it is, a wineish kind of red, but actually it's brighter than this. This looks dull while it's still wet. Red is notorious for needing quite a bit of work in order to achieve full coverage. As I'm out here on my quasi-cigarette break, I see that it would have been a beautiful night for stargazing, plenty of stars in the sky. Wait, this color matches my favorite chair to a T. That is a total coincidence. Who knew? This is a 1/2 inch by I think 20, and the reason for that, the fine thread. Put on the mayo. The pre-stain has been applied. So the next thing we're going to do, today's stain that we have is cherry wood. It's cold, so the parts are warming themselves against the radiator. We have 2 brass doorknobs for some bling. Get the 4 screws. So finally something useful for the gym equipment. This is the base of the mount, and what I need to do is I need to stick this board to it. So we need a smooth surface so that the base can swivel around easily, and what I found was this chalkboard. So this is a chalky surface. What it has on the other side is a smooth laminate surface, and this is what I was really looking for. I just picked the first glue that I thought might work, and that is this 3M77. And 20 minutes later I totally forgot about the glue, so no idea whether it's going to stick. That's good enough. And our base finally goes on top of this. So that docks in there. Put a washer, and lastly we're going to screw in our nut. You can see this is a locking nut. So that's going to go in here. So I'm just going to take my spanners and tighten it up. That's just about it. Oh, that's perfect. It moves beautifully. And we are ready for launch. So with the Teflon bearings, the movement is great. The azimuth movement, which is the horizontal movement, very smooth. I probably shouldn't bang it against the radiator. The altitude, which is the up and down, not quite as smooth, but then a lot better than what I expected, given that it's not really well built and that we don't have we should put a laminate strip on this side to make it much easier to move around and give it a smooth surface to move up and down against. I'm not doing that for this version. We're going to rebuild this telescope at a future date with care and precision. It'll be much better then. But anyway, this looks good to take out on a first night stargazing journey. So let's go and see how it performs. So it's been 2 weeks since the telescope has been up and running. So how has the experience of using it been? Well, it has been a ton of fun. It has been absolutely fantastic. What's really transformed the experience is sorting out the movement of the vertical and horizontal. Horizontal is the azimuth and the vertical is the altitude. And we did that by adding the Teflon pads. And now it moves butter smooth. So one useful thing about this telescope, it wasn't designed this way, but these cutouts over here make it very easy to carry out in one piece. So I can just bring it from inside to the outside, set it down. So what are the things I'll do differently? I'd probably get a bigger telescope. This one really works well. Just higher specs. Everybody wants higher specs, so I'd probably go for an 8-inch. However, what they say about size is very true. They say that a telescope in real life is a lot bigger than you think it would be. So this is a 6.5 inch, and it is the size that I thought that an 8-inch would be. So when you think about it, the 6.5 inch is the size of the mirror itself. So the tube has to be bigger, and the tube is actually 7.5 inches, close to 8 inches. So that's pretty big in size. An 8-inch will be even bigger. I think I can accommodate it in my situation, but that's about as big as I'd go with these telescopes. A second thing I'll change, of course, the base. I'll build it out of a different material. I'll build it with Baltic birch plywood. This pine that I use, blockboard, is not very good. However, despite the lack of accuracy in the build of this telescope, I've kind of become attached to the design. It works really well. It's got its own character, and I'm happy with it. So I'm going to stick with this for a long time to come. I really like the color that it came out. Of course, the stain is very splotchy and it's absolutely terrible. What I'll do is I'll use a regular stain instead of a gel stain. Another thing I'll do differently is the frame for the optical tube itself. This is built out of poplar, which is fine, but what I'll do is I'll stain it separately and I'll paint the tube separately before joining them together. I painted it and stained it after joining the two parts together, and of course, you know, the paint was running into the wood, the stain was running into the tube, and that's a whole mess. So doing them separately will make things a lot easier. As you can see, I designed it to be able to stand vertically so I can look at objects directly above me, and if necessary it can go down to the horizontal. So these are important design considerations. We've got a eyepiece holders. I'll need to redesign these so that you can put two eyepieces side by side. These are just right now for decoration. I only have one eyepiece, a zoom eyepiece. With truss tubes, you know, depending on the design, you may need to collimate it before using it. And collimation is basically aligning the mirrors. You can get slightly out of whack each time you use them. With these tube type Dobsonians, they hold collimation pretty well. So what does this telescope show you? You know, when you go to the internet or the magazines, you see these fantastic pictures of nebula, galaxies, and the planets and all that. That's not what you're going to see with this telescope. What you see is still fascinating. You know, you'll still see galaxies, but they're not going to be those, you know, bright, big, colorful things that you see. They're going to be faint. They call them faint fuzzies, in fact. It's going to be, depending on where you live, it's going to be harder to find them. So, you know, you will be catching an object. You will see it and, you know, you'll be able to identify it, but it's not going to be there in its full glory as, you know, you might expect from a magazine photo. So it's probably going to be black and white. It's going to drift across the screen, so you're going to have to eventually track it, you know, move the telescope every like 20 seconds, 30 seconds or so, just to keep it into view. However, it's no problem at all. You know, it's still a lot of fun. So just temper your expectations in that regard. So if you've enjoyed this journey, it's been fantastic and a lot of fun. Please subscribe, give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching and see you on the next project.